Claire Morgan had waited 11 months for this day. The divorce hearing. One signature. One final goodbye. She walked into the courthouse wearing a gray coat, holding the wedding ring she planned to leave on the judge's desk. Her husband, Ethan, was already there. He looked exhausted. Older than 40 should look. Either of them smiled. Either of them spoke. The judge hadn't even entered the courtroom when the doors suddenly opened. A little boy, no older than 7, ran inside. He ignored everyone. Ignored the lawyers. Ignored the security guards. He ran straight toward Ethan, wrapped both arms around him, and shouted, "Dad! I found you!" Every head in the courtroom turned. Claire felt the blood leave her face. She had never seen the child before. She looked at Ethan. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't happy. He looked terrified. The courtroom fell silent. The little boy held Ethan so tightly that it looked as though he was afraid someone would pull them apart. A woman rushed into the room moments later. "I'm so sorry," she said, breathing hard. "He ran away when I wasn't looking." She gently pulled the boy back. "I'm Emily. I'm his foster mother." Claire watched Ethan carefully. "Do you know this child?" the judge asked. Ethan hesitated. Too long. Finally he nodded. "Yes." Claire's heart sank. "You have a son?" "No." "Then who is he?" Ethan looked toward the boy before answering. "His name is Noah." The child interrupted. "He saved me." The room became quiet again. Claire frowned. "What does that mean?" Noah smiled at Ethan. "The fire." Claire turned sharply. "What fire?" Ethan lowered his eyes. "I never told you." Claire laughed bitterly. "Apparently there are a lot of things you never told me." 3 years earlier Ethan had disappeared for almost 6 months. He claimed he had taken temporary construction work in another state. He came home thinner, quieter, different. Every time Claire asked what had happened, he answered the same way. "It doesn't matter anymore." Now it clearly did. The judge postponed the hearing until the afternoon. Outside the courtroom, Claire stopped Ethan. "No more lies." Ethan stared at the courthouse steps. 3 years ago I wasn't working construction. Then where were you? There was an apartment fire. Claire waited. I was inside. You were trapped? He shook his head. I went back in. Claire blinked. What? There were children still upstairs. She searched his face. You've never told me this. I wasn't supposed to. Before Claire could ask another question, Noah ran back toward Ethan carrying a folded drawing. It showed Ethan holding a little boy's hand while flames surrounded them. Across the top were 4 words written in crooked handwriting. My real hero forever. Claire suddenly realized. She knew almost nothing about the man she had married. Claire couldn't stop looking at the drawing. It wasn't something a child invented. The details were too real. Smoke. Broken windows. Firefighters. Even Ethan's scar on his left hand. The scar he always claimed came from fixing an old truck. After the hearing was delayed, they sat in an empty conference room. For the first time in nearly a year, they actually talked. Ethan finally told the truth. 3 years earlier, while driving home from work, he saw an apartment building burning. People were screaming that children were trapped inside. Firefighters had not yet reached the 2nd floor. Without thinking, Ethan ran inside. He found Noah hiding beneath a bed. When he carried him downstairs, another child cried for help from the hallway. Ethan went back. Again. And again. He rescued 4 children before the roof partially collapsed. The burns on his arm. The damaged lungs. The nightmares. They all came from that day. Claire whispered. Why didn't you tell me? Ethan looked away. Because one child didn't survive. Silence filled the room. I reached her too late. His voice broke. Everyone called me a hero. But all I could think was, I wasn't fast enough. Claire understood. The man she believed had become distant had actually been drowning in guilt. The marriage didn't fail because he stopped loving her. It failed because he believed he didn't deserve to be loved anymore. Then Noah's foster mother quietly knocked on the open door. "There is something else you should know." She handed Claire a folder. Inside were dozens of letters. Every one addressed to Ethan. Every one returned unopened. They were from Noah. Claire frowned. "Why weren't they delivered?" Emily sighed. "The children's identities were protected during the investigation. When Noah finally learned Ethan's name, it was too late." Noah looked up. "I prayed every birthday that I'd find him again." Claire felt tears forming. The divorce papers suddenly seemed small, not unimportant, just unfinished. The divorce hearing resumed later that afternoon. The judge asked the same question. "Mrs. Morgan, do you still wish to proceed?" Claire looked at Ethan, then at Noah, then back at the ring resting on the table. She finally answered, "I don't know." For the first time in almost a year. That answer was honest. Not because every problem had disappeared. They hadn't. Trust isn't rebuilt in one afternoon. Grief doesn't vanish because someone finally tells the truth. But Claire realized something she had never understood. She hadn't been married to a liar. She had been married to a man carrying a weight too heavy for one person to survive alone. The divorce was postponed. Not cancelled. Postponed. They began therapy. Sometimes together. Sometimes separately. Noah visited on weekends. Slowly, laughter returned to the house. Nearly a year later, Claire found the old divorce papers in a kitchen drawer. She looked at Ethan. He smiled. "Throw them away?" Claire smiled back. "No." She tore them in half. Not because every scar had healed, but because they finally stopped hiding them from each other. Sometimes love doesn't end because two people stop caring. Sometimes it fades because silence grows louder than honesty. And sometimes, all it takes to save a marriage is one little boy running into a courtroom and calling a stranger, "Dad."